So, welcome, Sophie and Stephanie, to my presentation entitled First Gen Remote Research, How to Get Involved. So first, I want to introduce myself to my lovely audience. My name is Jackie. I'm a fourth year communication major. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And something else that I wanted to bring up, and I guess to add a little bit of more credibility to myself, is my experience with research. I'm a McNair scholar, and I've also been a research assistant for the CNCSP department here on campus for about 2 years, and this is going to be my third year research assisting now. And I think it's just helpful to give myself a little bit of credibility so that folks know where I've gotten my information from. I'm very passionate about research. I really surprisingly very much love it. The reason why I really wanted to put this presentation together was to kind of provide more background on research, especially to first generation college students who oftentimes don't have a strong foundation or understanding of what research is. And I say this from my own personal experience because coming into undergrad, I did not understand what research was at all. And I thought that I would never be interested in it. And now I'm applying to PhD programs. So if through any way this presentation helps someone connect to research, like that's the goal. Um, so first, I wanted to start off with describing what research is um, and what research could look like. So research looks different in different disciplines, but the definition of it on Google is systematic investigation into and the study of materials and resources in order to establish facts and reach new conclusions. So, like I mentioned, it can look like a lot of things. So, it can look like working in a research lab and literally with like microscopes and beakers and chemicals and such. Sometimes it's less like formal than that, and it's more like interviewing populations or groups to understand more about them. Sometimes it's data entry, so you in a computer and like looking at data and information about individuals. Sometimes it can even be going out into the field. So, for example, I know a few PhD students in biology, and they focus on plants and evolution. So they do a lot of field work literally in the field, in like fields of like grass and stuff. I don't understand much about it because that's not my research interest or discipline, but it can look like a variety of different things. Um, and is not always the stereotypical a person in the lab with goggles. And that's kind of really what I wanted to point out with this slide. And so the next thing I want to talk about is what are different ways to get involved in research. So I would describe research or research involvement in two big categories. The first would be research assisting. So you as an individual, as an undergrad, which is most common in undergrads and sometimes in grad students, is helping a professor or a grad student conduct their research. So in my experience, I've worked in a school psychology lab beginning my second year of undergrad. And at that time, I would really just be support for the grad student and the faculty who were leading the research. Um, so in my role, I was doing data entry, I was helping with paperwork, I was helping make phone calls, and really I was just a support to the person. The faculty member already had their research question, they had funding, they had everything figured out, and I kind of joined on later into the project and really supported the final like touches and like the ending of that project. The second category of research, I think that I would consider it as independent project. So independent projects can be carried out most likely through professors. So professors have their own projects, which are funded through universities, sometimes different institutions, or sometimes federally by the government. So the more serious, more formal independent projects are led by faculty members. Sometimes grad students, they will have their own independent projects, specifically PhD students who do dissertations. And sometimes at the undergraduate level, you can have your own independent project. So me and myself, as part of the McNair Scholars Program, I did an independent project on understanding teacher perspectives on universal screening. So it's kind of technical and a little bit nuanced to explain, so I won't explain really. But so for that project, I was I received support and funding, if you will, from the McNair Scholars Program. I was able to do it under the supervision of a faculty member, and they really helped guide my research. But I did the literature review, I analyzed the data, and I wrote up the results. So when you're in undergraduate level and you're doing an independent project, it's most likely that you'll have support and supervision from a faculty member who has more specific information in the field that you're doing research in. So part one, research assisting. How can you specifically get involved in research assisting at UCSB? So I would say that there are a few ways to go about doing this. One of the most common ways that you'll probably hear is to specifically reach out to a professor whose work you're interested in. Um, I so for example, you're a comm major. I'm a comm major, so I'll use that as an example. You're a comm major and you're taking a course with a professor who does research on understanding communication amongst college students. And you're really interested in that kind of work. You would really like to get involved in something like that. And one of the first things that I would recommend is to email your professor and ask them, hey, like, I'm really interested in the kind of work you do. Would you mind setting up a time with me to speak about your research? You'll find that faculty members are always more than willing to talk about their research. This is their life's work, and this is something that they're very passionate about. So oftentimes they love to talk about it and themselves. And I have found in my experience, the professors at UCSB are very engaging and they love to have undergraduate students to mentor and work with. Um, Another way to find research opportunities would be directly from campus departments. So oftentimes, if you belong to a major, they have like regular newsletters and such. So sometimes professors will advertise that they're looking for specific research assistants, and you can go ahead and apply with that. That's actually how I have found different opportunities on campus, is just through email blasts and keeping an eye out for that kind of thing. Another thing, another resource available to UCSB students is a FRAC directory. So that's a specific website. I can't quite remember who sponsors it, but the FRAP directory serves and lists specific faculty members who are looking for research assistants. Um, and you can go on there and sort by major or discipline, keywords, and kind of find faculty members who are looking for research assistants. You can actually also, they're updated every quarter at the beginning. So if you find yourself not ready to dive into research during a fall quarter and you decide maybe winter quarter would be a better time, you can hop onto the website during winter quarter and it should have updated information. So independent projects. Let's say you're interested in an independent project but don't know where to start. So I'll talk about some of the ways that you can go about doing that. The most common, well, I wouldn't say most common, but a way to do an independent project would be a senior thesis. So most departments sponsor seniors during their fourth year, and they have an advisor and they advise a group of students who are interested in conducting their own research within their major. Um, and it's typically done on a cohort basis. And it's very similar. You decide on a research topic and I guess create your own independent project. And one of the benefits of this is that you are under the supervision of faculty members who can guide your research and give you insight and input on this. If you're interested in doing a senior thesis, I would really recommend you looking into it ahead of time. Certain majors will require you to take a certain number of classes beforehand. Sometimes there's GPA requirements and different things like that. So you always, if that's something you're interested in, even as a first year or second year, it's not too early to like take a look at what kind of requirements that you would need to meet in order for you to be better prepared when that time would come. And then another resource for independent projects would be IRCA, who I think they stand for like Undergraduate Research Center or something like that. And so they offer a lot of resources for students. They offer grants and funding for both. They have specific funding for transfer students as well, which is something that I think is really cool. Sometimes transfer students can feel like their experience is very rushed and they don't know how to get involved, but connecting with the folks over at IRCA would be a great place to start. They also have peer mentors who are always willing to support students. Typically, IRCA grants and funding require that you have a faculty mentor and someone kind of guiding your research. And that's a really common trend if you're an undergraduate student and you want to do an independent project. That's just because faculty members know a lot, and they have a lot of guidance and wisdom, and the research process can be kind of difficult sometimes. So it's very nice to have the support of a faculty member or their graduate students. So now this is just information on IRCA. Uh, so IRCA has a specific grant and they have a transfer student grant. And so the deadline for that is November 20th. So they typically, for their funding at least, I believe it's $750. And you can use that for research instruments and like costs. Because this is a recording, whatever time you are watching this, they typically have that deadline in November. Something else that the IRCA department or a group they do is IRCA journal. So if you have a research project that you worked on and you would like to publish it, IRCA has their journal, which would be a great opportunity to be able to add that to your resume or your CV that you're published. And so their deadline for those sorts of things would be mid-May. Another thing that IRCA does is the IRCA Colloquium, which is an opportunity to present your research and a poster presentation. And their deadline for that is also mid-May. And that's also a really cool opportunity to get presenting experience at an undergraduate level. And here you'll see just their website. So I believe this is one of the final ways I'll describe of getting involved in research is the special programs. And so you'll find that at a research institution like UCSB, there's a lot of ways for students to get involved in research. Almost every single professor on campus is conducting some sort of research, especially if they're considered a professor or faculty. Lecturers typically don't do research, but most departments are made up of faculty members who are actively doing research. Um, and so I'm not sure quite where I was going with that thought, but so now I'll just be going over some of the special programs that exist at UCSB. There are quite a few, and I'll just go through them individually. So one of the ones that I have most knowledge about is the McNair Scholars Program, and that's because I'm a McNair Scholar. So the purpose of the program is to help underrepresented students conduct research and apply to doctoral programs. And so this particular program is 2 years. And they have two application cycles. So you can apply as a second year during your winter quarter, I believe, or you can apply during your fall quarter as a junior. Um, and so here you'll find information on the website and contact information. And their deadline is typically week, I think, 5 of fall quarter if you're applying as a junior, and around winter quarter if you're applying as a second year. So just to add on a little bit more information, as part of the McNair Scholars Program, I have learned so much information. I have had so much support, both from peers in my cohort, as well as the staff members, and of course, financial resources that they've made available for me. Um, a really cool thing about the McNair Scholars Program is that it's open to all majors and disciplines. Sometimes it's difficult to find programs like this that are specific to humanities or social sciences, but the McNair Scholars Program accepts students from all different majors. Another program, also actually staffed by the McNair Scholars Program, is the Edison Scholars Program, and this gives scholarships specifically to help students in STEM, and it helps support them financially in terms of stipends and money for the research supplies, as well as grad school applications. So to find out more information about this program, this is the website. Contact information is here. The deadline to apply was October 30th, but if you're seeing this in the future, or if you're a first year, you would want to look out for this deadline in the beginning of fall quarter. And they also have a summer program, and that's specifically for STEM students, and the deadline to apply to that would be April 3rd. So another program is the Mark Scholars Program. And so the Mark Scholars Program is a 2-year program, and it's also specifically for STEM and biomedical specifically. And it's similar that into McNair that you work with a faculty and mentor to do research. And they offer actually substantial financial support for students. And their website is here. Their deadline to apply is mid-February of every year. And the program coordinator is Samantha, and her email is right here as well. The Gorman Scholars is also for STEM students, and it's similar in that it supports research and supports students applying to graduate school. This one is also hosted by CSEP, so it has the same program coordinator of Samantha, and their deadline to apply is mid-February of every year. Another program also hosted by CSEP, which you'll notice CSEP hosts a lot of like research programs, is the Eureka program. And this one is unique and that's specific to first year students and kind of exposing them to research. Most programs, if they're 2 years, require you to be a participant for your junior and senior year, which means that the application process would be during your second year. So it's always important to know. And if you're interested in any of these programs, to really look into it and the requirements, as some require you to be a certain standing to be able to apply, as well as have a certain GPA. Most also require writing samples or a statement of purpose to apply. But the deadline to apply to Eureka is mid-February of every year. So another program is UC Leads, which is to help specifically upper division UCSB students who have experiences, and this one's specifically for students who have experienced adverse impact in their advancement of the field of study. So programs that are for underrepresented students are also really cool because it really gives opportunity for students, like first generation students, to experience research, which is not something that's always discussed at different community levels. So the contact information for this person is Brianna, and the deadline to apply is early February of every year. The thing that you'll notice is most of the deadlines are in winter quarter, and not typically fall quarter. I think McNair is one of the only programs that has such an early deadline early in the school year. But that's actually the end of my research presentation. Does anyone have any questions for me? Thank you for your attention and participation.